What's good, everyone? It's your boy, Matt Diazable, coming at you with another album review and a Did I Miss Anything review. And today we're checking out the band Morning Again with their debut album, As Tradition Dies Slowly. If you're watching this, you probably already know who Morning Again is, but if you don't, I'll explain who they are. And also, I need to explain to myself because for being straight edge and everything, I've heard about this band, but I've never actually really listened to them. So I'm very happy I took the time to listen to this band and everything because I'll be seeing them soon in Japan at Blood Axe Fest 2024. Oh yeah. Morning Again is not sure. I'm not sure if they still are or aren't, but at the time of when this album was recorded, they were a straight edge vegan metalcore band. And they got their start back in the year 1995, and they were a band until about 98, I think, when I was reading up on their history. And if I'm correct, I think one of the members eventually went on to start the record label Eulogy Records. So they were one of the, I guess, not the big metalcore straight edge band that came around in the late 90s, but I think they were one of the ones who were trying to craft and work around that sound at the time as it was emerging post like Earth Crisis with Firestorm and everything. So I don't want to say they're one of the originators of it, but I think they were trying to flesh out their own style. And I think a lot of people who are into straight edge veganism. Um, I've heard this band's name dropped a couple times within people who are into those things because they seem pretty influential, but I don't know if their influence is that big because it never got around to me when I started getting to straight edge about 2007 and everything. But that's like way down the road, and I think this band was not doing anything and was not as active. I think they didn't get back to touring or doing shows until like 2011 when a lot of time had gone by and people wanted to see them again. So I'm excited I get to see them soon and talk about this album. While listening to this album and after listening and letting it soak in, I can see how their influence is pretty noticeable, and especially with how their riffs have a really strong ripping feel to it. And I can tell that a lot of modern metalcore bands kind of use their similar style, I think. The drumming has a really nice deep feel to it, accompanied by some deep bass playing here and there. And I think one thing that really sticks out is the vocals. They have a really visceral sound to it that I feel like at the time was a little bit rough, but as time has progressed, people have refined that style of singing. And maybe because they listened to Morning Again and liked his screaming style and was able to, they laid the foundation for that. And then they were able to take off and do better raw sounding vocals. But his vocals have a really good raw visceral sound to him that just tells that he's like really emotional when he's singing. I think guitar playing on this album is very shreddy. It's that real metalcore style of just like going really fast as possible. And I think it's pretty influential in a lot of bands, I think. But as I was listening to it, I feel like it got very repetitive on this album, and so it got kind of boring at times while listening to the riffs. But I think they really shine when they slow things down and have more groovy and heavy style, I guess heavy-handed playing. I think that's where Morning Again really shines in terms of their style and their particular way of playing. And I think on the song, what was it, Dictation of Beauty, there's a really good style being played here with the wrists, and I want to show you that dynamic playing they have with this particular track. Like when they really slow things down, they go for those chugs and everything. I think those shreddy guitars are pulled back a little bit, and they just got those more heavy, down-tuned played riffs, and they just sound way better. I guess I want to say that those type of riffs are just very groovy, and they have a very mesmerizing quality to them that just makes them stick out more, and I think leave a more lasting impression than the typical shreddy, which they're doing it pretty good on this record and stuff, but they're just not as memorable, I think. And going back to talking about the vocals, I think the raw emotion that he has here, I think it's really backed by a sense of urgency. Like at the time the album was written and put out, I think he just really, him, maybe the band as well, just really need to get these thoughts and emotions they had in their head at the time out, because you can really feel like his vocalization in terms of like the raw energy he's got there. Talking about straight edge and veganism, which is a very pretty heavy subject, I could imagine. So I think it translates really well in his vocal performance. And I think the song Martyr has a really good, or shows a good example of that vocal capacity he had at the time. So I'm going to play a clip of that for you.
Love me properly. Do you know what you went to stand for? You're really not the free wrong
You can really feel what he's saying with these lyrics. When the drums can be heard, they have a really deep and groovy feel to them. The drummer definitely had some chops to him when he was playing on this record, but I will say that the guitars at times can be a little bit overpowering, and so it drowns out the drums, I think. And one particular song is on the song Murder You Call War. There's like the way the riffs are being played, they're heavy, they sound dope, but you can barely hear the drums, I think. And so I think that really hinders the whole flow and feel of the album. So I'm gonna play a clip of that for you right now.
I would never help you. I'd rather die. I would never help you. I'd rather die. And I have to kill me.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but it felt like the guitars were a little bit too high in the mix right there, and so you just couldn't hear those drums. The major hindrance for this album, it would be the production, I think, but at the same time, I want to let that slide a little bit because it is a 30-year-old record. Times have changed, there's better production, so I can't really get too mad at that, I guess. But it feels like this is a producer's first time making a record, because the mixing and layering of all the different instruments and vocals, it just seems too all over the place, and it doesn't feel very consistent. And it feels very DIY, but not in the best or cool way. So I would say that's a major problem with this album. Like, it feels very dated. It hasn't aged very well, I think, in terms of sound quality. The bass on this album is particularly like pretty good throughout the whole album. Like, it's got a really heavy tuning to it. It's got some solos here and there. I think there was nothing really wrong with it. It was doing its job and holding things down pretty nicely. And another thing that kind of pulls the album back a little bit for me is a few times on the record, the band themselves, they get a little bit sloppy and a little bit, I guess, messy in their playing. So there's certain parts of the album where it just feels like a clusterfuck of sounds. But fortunately, it's just like a few times, but it was enough times where I noticed that I was like, okay, maybe they were really inexperienced at this time when they were making the music. It's their debut back in '95, so not too many people can have a really perfect debut unless they're already an experienced musician. Then yeah, maybe, but it did feel a little rough at times with this album. And so overall, like, my thoughts on this album is I see the influence that they did, like, you know, straight edge, veganism. We got more bands that weren't just like Earth Crisis or something. So it helped like open the gates for other bands to want to create metal music and metalcore and hardcore music. So I see their influence there, and I get why it's pretty good and everything. Would I say that I missed out on anything? There's a couple tracks here and there that I think were pretty good. Most of it was all right, and there's a few like subpar tracks. Overall, I think their importance to straight edge and veganism is pretty evident, but also they had just a short run. I'm very conflicted about it, but I say, yeah, I think I missed out on some things with Morning Again. Like, there were some parts that I didn't realize that were like pretty good I'm pretty stoked to go check out and see them live and see how they play. But yeah, pretty good album. Straight edge vegan band that did a lot for the scene early in the days of when it was still trying to grow and everything. So got to give them credits and give their dues on that. So I would say this album from Morning Again, this debut, is a decent to soft 8 out of 10. Yeah. Links down below. Comment. Tell me any thoughts on this album when you first heard it, or any anecdotes you have about this album. I would be very curious to hear it. I'm excited to see them this coming weekend in Japan. Ooh, Blood Axe Facts, baby. Links down below. And until next time, guys, I will see you in the pit.